Everyone doing?
And a
Good,
day
good.
like today, woof, we're excited. This is,
Everyone enjoy yesterday, Palindrome Day?
oh
Yes.
yes, 2222222.
Do, 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 do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was TWOSDAY Tuesday. And it was also National Margarita Day, by the way.
Oh, I missed that, Frank. Hey, Louise, how you doing?
Super.
It was a beautiful day. It
Yeah.
really was. It was nice today. I'm glad. I needed a little summer day. It's good. All right, we're at the top of the hour, and I think we have people will come in. Welcome everybody. Thanks again, Angela, for organizing. So call the meeting to order. Is there any public comment before we get started? All right, hearing none. I just wanted to, we have a prospective member for the commission, and John Johnson, who actually came to our forum and was so interested. He said, well, I think if there's ever a vacancy, I'd like to engage. So John, if you wouldn't mind just giving us just an overview of your background, that'd be great.
All right, great. Thank you. Good to see everyone. My name is John Johnson, and I did come through that forum. I thought that was a very great presentation. I'm usually involved in a few different community functions, and being new to the Arlington area, I thought I'd jump back in. I currently work at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. I deal with a lot of the financial management systems and data analytics and the regulatory, and even having to take that to trial. So I thought this could be a good fit for me because we are dealing with a lot of cybersecurity issues right now and the protecting of that data. So when I saw that put together, I thought this would be a good fit, possibly.
Oh, well, welcome. Thank you very much. And if we could
And
just go around.
John might mention that he's also has a financial background, accounting background, which I think could be useful for some of the, like tonight's budget consideration.
Right, very exciting stuff for me. Very exciting.
Yeah, John, that's good that you consider budgets exciting. That's excellent. And if you could just go around and just so John has a sense about who's here. You've met Frank virtually. Gary, could you just introduce yourself as one of the new members?
Sure. Hi, Gary Thayer here. I'm new on the commission as of mid last year. Prior to that, I had a background career in the federal government at Federal Communications Commission as an attorney, and also at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And I had done some nonprofit work as well, most recently at Arlington Independent Media.
Thanks so much, Gary. And Jackie?
Sure, Jackie Snelling. I've been on a couple of years. Started out as the liaison from the Emergency Preparedness Advisory Commission and got hooked on attending the meetings. So, and I'm also a retired Fed, retired FEMA, where I did work on emergency communications, among a host of other things.
Great, thanks, Jackie. And Michael Cornfield. We have two mics, so I refer to Michael Cornfield as Michael, and the other one is Mike, so we don't get confused. Go ahead, Michael.
I'm a professor at GW and a longtime Arlington resident. I specialize in civics and political management.
Great, thanks, Michael. Mike? Mike Carlton? You're still on mute, Mike, for somehow. You're back on mute. There you go.
Hi there, welcome. I'm Mike Carlton. I'm also a retired federal career civil servant. I was the chief information officer at a couple of different federal agencies at different times, mainly at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and prior to that at the U.S. General Services Administration. Welcome.
Thanks, Mike. And Kevin?
Howdy, welcome. Yeah, I'm not a new ITech member. I'm currently working for the feds right now, doing like analytical stuff, an analyst, technical analyst, but I have a background in telecom too. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much. And John Burke.
Hi, I'm relatively new for some of the people who are on board, but I guess I'm a kind of an old hat by now. I've served in my second term. I'm currently a senior IT specialist for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and I do software delivery for enterprise systems and acquisition program management.
Thanks, John. And we have a guest, a meeting guest. So welcome, meeting guest. Is that Andrea? Is that by any chance you? Who's our meeting guest? I see. Is that one of our members?
It may be me.
Oh,
Mary.
Louise. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Louise.
Oh, I'm Louise Anderson. Welcome. I'm the FiOS TV franchise manager, and I attend these meetings every month in case anybody has any questions for me.
Yeah, with Verizon. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else I missed as I look through the list here? Anybody else on that I missed? I think. Okay. All right. Well, next on our agenda is John is the representative for Tech Commission on the Data Privacy and Oversight Panel for the Safety Innovation Zone, which we've been briefed on in the initial launch. So, John, we wanted to just get a sense about where things are and what was happening. So it's great to hear the update. So I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. And Mary, I'm having some technical difficulties. The transition from daycare pickup to ITAC meeting has not gone as smoothly as I would have hoped. So if someone could either bring up the slides or if you could push me to after the discussion of the budget, I think I should be able to have my technical issues resolved.
Okay, I did not download your unless Frank, you have it. If anyone else has it, that's fine. I don't have it.
Yeah, I don't have it readily available.
Okay. All right. So we'll go to the debrief of the virtual forum, and then you let us know when you can come back in, John. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So the virtual forum program on data privacy, we did get 50 actually. So that was a good response. I wanted to get your sense about what you observed, and then we've just bounced around some ideas about action items afterward, but just wanted to open it up to the floor before we get to those. Any comments?
I'll go, Mary. I thought it was a really good first step for us as a commission. It's the first time we've done anything like that. I think it went reasonably well. I think, as usual, anytime you do something for the first time, there's opportunities for improvement. But generally, I would say kudos to you and Sharon for pulling it together and getting a good panel and a good discussion going. I think the opportunities for improvement I would put in the Q&A section. I think a little bit more structured and opportunity for people to submit questions in advance might lead to a better kind of dialogue after the prepared presentations. And so I think that might be an area for improvement as we improve our engagement going forward.
Great. Thanks, John. Frank?
Yeah, I think also the look may be improved if we go to the webinar format rather than going on the traditional Teams meeting format. And I think we discussed doing that for the next one. And I think that might just from a, I think overall look and probably functionality maybe a little better.
Right. Good. Yeah. Both good points. Mike, you had a suggestion. Go ahead, Mike. I was just going to throw the ball to you, so go ahead. Mike, you're talking, but you're muted again. Double mute. There you go.
I'm sorry. I enjoy a wide-ranging discussion like that more than the next person, but I would have to say, citizen tune. I watched that meeting with no expectation that Arlington County intends to create a privacy policy. And that would make me wonder whether attending a second one or a third one is is a good use of my time. If we're doing this to inform a policy setting process, and we're intending to set a policy, it seems more worthwhile than if we're not intending to set a countywide policy. The next recommendation would be any forum like that. It's going to be difficult to answer all the questions that people might bring forward. So I'd like to suggest a concept of what I would call like a question for the record. It's sort of like, I can't remember who this was, but one of the participants was asking repeatedly whether the county shares information about citizens with any third parties. And again, I would say, if I was observing correctly, that simply never got answered. And it's a fair question. It's a good question. It's a question that deserves like a definitive answer, not a, I don't share any, but there's lots of other people in the county who might, so I would suggest as a concept, if we don't address questions in the live piece, we might want to follow up with answers for the record. And then lastly, it also sort of reinforced in me that privacy is a particularly difficult starting point because there are so many aspects of it that are outside the control of the county. And I would rather be first taking up IT governance within the county and IT strategic planning within the county, which seem like topics that are similar in their difficulty, but clearly within the authorities and the scope of the county, because no one else is going to do it for us. But no one's going to prevent us from doing it either. So those are my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. No, thanks. And Mike, we do have a list of those questions, and I think that's a great idea. And we did. We'll just jump ahead a little bit. And one of the questions Frank and I did pose to make sure and clarify with the board was, third party sharing of data, and we're assured that that was not. So that those are good things to have as answers to the question of the record, right? So thank you. We will do that. And Andrea, I think one of the things you brought up that I was just discussing with Angela is we want to make sure we get an okay from all the presenters that we can share all the PowerPoints. We pretty much have that, but we just want to make sure and have that in writing, so that we will be able to share those, because I think that would be helpful too, to post those in case people wanted to look at what was said as well. So you raised a really good question, I think, the night of the session. So thank you. All right. Any other comments? We also talked to and we'll get there, I think, when we do chair update. Frank, did you have oh, John, you're ready. Frank, did you want to say something before we
I was just going to add that some of the questions might be
we're getting a feedback for some reason.
Okay, I was going to suggest that perhaps some of the questions that we received might later be worthy of FAQ in a website on data privacy for the county.
Good idea.
Another way to get beyond the record as far as something. We now have an idea of what people are interested. Some people are interested in.
Yeah, no, good idea, and that as an ongoing public engagement.
Right.
Yeah, good idea. Good idea. Mike, is that an old hand or a new hand?
It's an old hand, but in response to Frank's comment, if I might, I think that we need the answer to be coming from the county, not from the commission.
Oh, exactly. No.
Right.
No. We're just going to be the conduit. This needs to be an official, absolutely, an official response. Absolutely. Point taken. So, John, you want to give us an update on? Do you refer to it as SIZ? SIZ or just Safety Innovation Zone?
I refer to it as civic engagement, which is
okay.
What I do put on my calendar. So I neither endorse nor counteract the county's branding of this particular project. Can you see my screen? Can you see my slides?
We can. Thank you.
So I'm trying to keep this brief. We've been meeting monthly as the data privacy oversight panel. We've had a couple meetings that have gotten canceled for various reasons, but generally we've been meeting monthly since the beginning of the project. And a lot of things, I think, have come as a result of our collaboration with the county and our feedback on the project specifically. What if you haven't been paying attention, what you're probably unaware of is that there have been many updates to the project website. There have been many artifacts posted under the related information section on the website. And the three that I'll talk about that I think are the most relevant for us, the privacy impact assessment. So as part of the project, the county went through and exercised a privacy impact assessment for this project, but with the intent to use it as a prototype for a broader privacy impact assessment approach for all projects going forward. And they have posted the public version of that privacy impact assessment on the project website. And in the discussions, there's a lot of data in the larger project privacy impact assessment that is not necessarily appropriate to share with the public. And so I think the team did a good job of building an artifact and a process that could be usable by all departments for conducting a privacy impact assessment that would coordinate internal county government resources while also being transparent and publishing what's shareable to the public out. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. Another thing that I think really helps communicate and probably would have been nice to have earlier in the project development, but we have it now, is the sensor technology feature list. This is a really plain attempt to put it in layman's terms, what these sensors are capable of, the system, not only the sensor, but the sensor, the software, the connectivity, what they are capable of detecting, and the use cases associated with those various things. And it goes down a lot of the things that the county intends to do, and it also lists out several things that we thought important to communicate to the public that are not included or not possible, either not possible or not features that they intend to utilize. And there's a difference between the two, and I think that matters from the public's perception of risk, right? Is it something that we just haven't flipped the switch on, or is it something that the hardware and software is simply not capable of? So I would encourage you to look through that sensor technology feature list. Sorry, I blipped there. Can you still see my screen?
We can.
Yes.
Yep. Good. It also breaks down by the phases of the project, which features are in what phase of development. So it kind of gives you a sense, and the public a sense of what's active right now and what's going to be active in the near future. And then the George Mason University Data Analysis Statement of Work, that sorry, blip again.
I'll
try and move closer to my
Yeah.
I'll move closer to my access point.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm getting a lot of Gary. Could you mute? So that gives you a lot of the detail about the scope of work and the privacy restrictions that have been put into place, but for the George Mason, which is a project partner with the county, who are doing some of the data analysis and what specifically analysis they're doing and for what purposes. So a lot of additional information has been posted to the project website that's available. So I think that's an important update. The other thing that we did is we went through the NIST privacy framework at the project level. And I took a screen cap here, and I also sent out a blank copy so that you can go through and look at every single function, category, and subcategory that's in the framework if you haven't had a chance to look at it already. And the initial assessment was conducted by the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative team out of Virginia Tech. These are PhDs, professors in systems engineering who are a resource to the project as a result of funding coming out of the state, out of the Commonwealth government. And so they worked really behind the scenes with the county staff, having access to information that is not publicly available, to do an initial assessment. Jackie and I then went and provided feedback on each one of these items, which they incorporated into their assessment. And so I think at the project level, one of the things, and Jackie, I'll ask you to comment here, that we saw was that at the project level, most of the risks were controlled. Where we saw most of the risks coming from that needed to be addressed was from the organizational level, right? The lack of the organizational privacy policy, and some of the things that that should be inherited by a project from organizational level concepts. And obviously for cybersecurity, we had no way to provide any sort of opinion whatsoever because we don't have access to any of that information.
Yes, and I would add 2 points to that. It wasn't just that we didn't know about the system level. It's that we were informed that there isn't a mapping of the systems that would allow you to see where they intersect with others. And that was one of our major concerns. So
Right.
that became a high risk. And then the other one is that you can't see where the incoming data gets aggregated with other data and what the safety or security measures are for when they're integrated, but also for those other data systems that are being integrated. So yes, a lot of the risk is at the system level, but it's also at the level where the system connects with this project.
Right.
So
And yeah, and from my perspective, right, the issues of privacy and aggregation, or classification of data in specific or in aggregation is a problem and a challenge across the entire IT domain, right? So it's not unique to this project, but again, it's one of those things where we saw that because the county doesn't have resources to address it, it's going to be a risk for any of our projects. So
yes,
but
and for Mike's comment, just one other addition. For Mike's comment of does the county share data? This is why it's hard to answer that question. It's because you might have a stream of data coming in, like the project that we're talking about, but once it gets integrated with other data, then you're not able to map where else it might go.
That's right. But just to, provide everyone the awareness that we did go through this assessment, which I think is a best practice and should be something that is happening more frequently on all sorts of projects. Which leads to the coming soon section. The data, we were supposed to take a look at it at our last meeting, but we actually canceled that because the data wasn't quite ready. The panel report on phase 1, actually the first draft crossed into my inbox today. I've not had a chance to look at it. The idea there is that there will be a report created. It will be submitted to the county board, and at least portions of it, if not the entire thing, will be made available to the public. And I intend to bring that content to the extent that it's possible to the Tech Commission before publication, and to the extent that it's not after publication. But making sure that we have the opportunity as a commission to opine on this project, or on this report, generally speaking, in our independent capacity. And then phase 2 and phase 3 features, we got notice that the phase 2 feature for being able to identify jaywalking and some dashboard improvements, the internal dashboard improvements, was scheduled to be delivered on February 6th. So that should have already been into place. And then phase 3 is the planning is underway, and we don't have a date for the implementation of phase 3 features quite yet. So that's the update. Trying to keep it short and sweet, and I'll switch back over and see if anyone has any questions.
Thanks, John. Any questions? I have questions, but I'll reserve until I give others an opportunity.
Hey, Mary and everyone
Hi.
else. Hi.
Hi, Andrea.
What was the deal with the jaywalking, and what are we trying to do with that?
So they're releasing a feature so that the sensors can detect jaywalking. I don't know the thought behind what they're going to do with that data, Andrea.
Okay.
But the idea is that essentially the sensor detects, light, and using the signals from that light can classify image objects as various different things using artificial intelligence. And so they've looked at pedestrian safety, they've looked at vehicle safety. I think, frankly, and I've said this in other forums and I'll say it again here, I think the privacy aspects of this project are the strongest pieces of it. I think um, the benefit, the value of the project to the community, and why this project over another potential project is the areas where I have more concerns. But that's not from the privacy oversight panel perspective. That's more from the general tech commission perspective in our previous discussions about improving the kind of the capital planning and investment control process on IT projects across the county. So that is the feature. The feature is going to be able, purportedly, to be able to detect jaywalking versus someone who's crossing in a crosswalk.
Is that
Jackie?
something that they will let, like it'll be demonstrated before they actually go like hot with it? I mean, will people get to, I don't know, not really sample it, but will they be able to, experience it before it, like a pilot?
Some people, but not the general public, is my understanding. And this has been another one of the concerns that I've raised about this project, again, from the Tech Commission perspective, is what are we using these data for? What decisions are we making on them? How do we know that we can trust the data to actually reflect what the data say, right? Because
Right.
it's an artificial intelligence algorithm. It's a black box to some extent. And so those types of concerns, I think, are ones that I share.
Got it. Got you.
Mike?
Well, I'll try to be humorous to start. I'm randomly in Clarendon quite frequently, and a spoiler alert: you'll find jaywalkers there all over the place, every time of day, every day of the week. What you want to do with that information is still a valid question, but I hate to ruin it for the data analysts. But I will say, and this is almost a rhetorical question, John, I used to work with the NIST guidance in my job, and perhaps others on this line did too. This is obviously intended to be applied before you launch a project, right? Not applied to backfill a project that's already underway, right?
Well, Mike, I'm a risk manager. I don't think risk management has a good stop and start time. I think it's something that you should be doing all the time. So I'm glad we're doing it now, but I would concur that ideally you would want to assess risks during project formulation and design.
Yeah. And I don't mean to say you have to stop assessing risk, but boy, it's weird to only begin after you've decided to launch. And it raises questions in my mind. What is the motivation, to launch so quickly? The other thing, and this is a bit of an analogy for me, usually there's something like a maturity model that someone has developed. Certainly that was true for software development. I think it's true for cybersecurity. Is there anybody out there offering like a maturity model assessment around privacy? It seems very doable to me, especially with all the groundwork NIST has done. And even if there isn't, am I making the correct inference that Arlington would be level 0 and has a lot of maturation to do in its processes and its decision making before it could claim to have a privacy program?
So the NIST framework itself does include the steps of assessing your current state, choosing a target state, and then moving towards that target state, right? It provides those toolkits. So the NIST framework could be used for the privacy assessment and resource allocation type activities to inform those that you're talking about. And I would say that no, we are not at level 0. I think it depends upon, if you go through the framework and you look at the different functions and categories and then subcategories. Many of them are I found to be good. I found us to be in a good place. Many of them I found us to not be in a good place. So I think it really is the devil's in the details. But I would absolutely not say that we're at 0.
Okay, and thank you for that. I'm glad to hear it. And I'll just lastly say, in the context of a forum like we had last time, I was getting the impression from the county that people who work for the county think we're pretty okay in this privacy function, and people who are citizens are less convinced of that or more skeptical of that. It would be very nice to have a shared set of criteria, which leads us to inform whatever judgments we have. If we think we're doing enough, if we think we do more, it would be grounded in some shared scope.
Well, I'll tell you that if the report doesn't include a recommendation to use the NIST privacy framework for that very purpose, I will advocate that we as the commission make that recommendation. And if it does include if it does include that, I will advocate that we endorse that recommendation.
All right, and thanks again to you and Jackie for putting attention on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, John, in phase 3, is it your understanding that that's where the task force will go back to the board and request the board's approval to operationalize?
I don't believe that the county government at this current moment believes that they need any other board action to make operational decisions based on the data. I think they feel that they have the delegated authority from the original board approval to make operational changes as a result of this technology. I think the next opportunity that the board is going to have for an action is the report. And I think I don't know what happens after that. I think the next phase would be pilot completion and a decision to either continue on and keep the sensors up or pull them down. Would be but I don't know that has been fleshed out specifically. But in terms of, do we incorporate these data into our dispatch decisions? I believe that the county government believes that they have the authority to make that determination, given the board's prior action.
And just point of clarification, and then Jackie, I'll give you'll be next. Am I correct in remembering that we have collected data from a county point of view since June of 2021? Is that correct?
July.
Yeah, I think
of
the
2021
census went up in July, but we haven't seen it yet, so I can't confirm.
Right. Okay. But the understanding was, so it's been months.
That's
been 6 or 7 months, right? Okay. All right. I'll hold my next question. Jackie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the major point, I think, change point or assessment point is the completion of the pilot, and they would need to go back to the board, because if they wanted to expand it in any way and use it beyond this one pilot location, that would be a significant budget impact that has not been discussed or even, all of the information on the cost of this is really only accurate for the pilot. It's not accurate for any kind of broader implementation.
Okay. And is it your, John, is it your understanding that you all will be when you're briefed on the data, that you will be briefed on how the data has impacted within the confines of the pilot, but assisted decision making? Is that something that you believe will be included in addition to just showing you what data has been collected? Do you think you will get briefed on how it was a decision aid?
Yeah, I don't know at this point, Mary, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm anxiously awaiting seeing the data.
Final question for now.
And Mary, remember, to put a fine point on it, the scope of the privacy governance board is not inclusive of that type of decision making. So I think one of the things for us to remember is that the governance board, the privacy governance board, is often pointed to as the cure-all for some of these other questions that are not privacy questions, and it is not in the scope of that governance board. I think it is within the scope of this commission and the Emergency Preparedness Advisory Commission to opine on those other topics or request information about them.
Right. The fine. Okay, got it. And so we will. So you will update us as we move forward. And your sense is that the draft report will be ready in April?
It crossed the first draft crossed my inbox today, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet. So we do have our next meeting coming up, which is scheduled for the 9th of March. So hopefully we'll be discussing it there, and maybe we might have a chance to look at some of the data.
This really is the final question from me on this topic for now. Is the NIST framework, since it looks like it has served the oversight panel well, is that being used in other parts of the county right now? I mean, has there been a recommendation to your knowledge, or is it being circulated and scaled anywhere? Because obviously that's something that if it's done, it's gone well within the confines of this pilot. The task force has learned that much. I'm wondering if it's being applied to other projects.
I don't know that it is. I don't know that it isn't. My sense, if I had to speculate, is that the privacy impact assessment, the NIST assessment, are not common practices across the county government at this time.
Okay, so that might be a question that we asked Jamie about as well. The person who's chairing your oversight panel, just for clarity about how well that is being. Whether that's being used beyond the scope of the oversight panel.
My sense is that they are using this project to prototype some of these activities as a way to, smooth off the rough edges and make recommendations for broader implementation.
But at this point, you all have not been briefed on what their vision is for the broader implementation.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Great. Well, thank you, John. Appreciate it. And
thank you.
And we really we look forward to the next briefing. Appreciate it. Frank, legislative update.
All right, thank you, Mary. The Environmental Protection Agency, in collaboration with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, is extending an initiative to improve the cybersecurity of industrial control systems to the water sector, which is encouraging since we know in the past there have been some issues in the water sector on that front. So that's a encouraging development. The FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel has proposed to require callers to obtain consumers' consent before delivering a ringless voicemail, a message left in their mailbox without ringing their phone. So that's, again, on the ongoing robocall battles. This next item, thanks to Jackie for highlighting it, 10-digit telephone dialing will be required nationwide. Means you have to put in your area code on July 15th of the year. It has been required in our region for quite some time, but the rest of the nation will get to do all that dialing. This transition is being made in conjunction with the establishment of 988 as a nationwide 3-digit national suicide prevention lifeline, which will connect callers to suicide prevention and mental health crisis counseling. The FAA Administrator Steve Dixon testified before the House Committee on Transportation that 5G and aviation can safely coexist, which is good to hear. FAA is in a better place, he said, than they were in January, having received detailed data from Verizon and AT&T. The FCC has formed a cross-agency task force to create rules and policies to combat digital discrimination and to promote equal access to broadband across the country, regardless of zip code, income level, ethnicity, race, religion, or national origin, consistent with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It appears that the directive is now leading to an inquiry into how the FCC can prevent such digital discrimination. Separately, on another matter, 11 Senate Republicans have protested Treasury Department rules to distribute American Rescue Plan funds to fund broadband deployment in areas already served with speeds of 25 megabits per second down and 3 megabits per second up. The interim and final rule said that ARP-funded projects must reliably meet or exceed symmetrical 100 Mbps down and up, or at least 100 down and 20 up where symmetrical speeds are not practicable because of excessive cost or geography of the area. So that, if that rule is changed, that could have an impact locally as far as efforts to have a broadband authority. An FCC proposal previously reported on broadband choice for multi-tenant environments has been adopted. The new rules prohibit providers and dwelling owners from having exclusive revenue sharing agreements. And the new rule would require broadband providers to let tenants know in plain language if there is an exclusive marketing agreement between building owners and the broadband providers. However, such agreements are not prohibited. The FCC also clarified that existing cable inside wiring rules prohibit sale and leaseback arrangements that block access to competitive offerings. And just this week, the FCC is proposing a $45 million forfeiture or fine against a robocaller seeking to sell health insurance during the pandemic without caller's consent. So, very large penalty again on the ongoing robocaller wars. So that's my report. Yes.
Thanks very much. Jackie has a question, I think, Frank?
Yeah.
Yes. In the news today, and probably more so going on, is the phase out of 3G and the impact that the phase out of 3G is having. And I did look up on the FCC to see if there was anything related to that they were up to. And they have a petition from AARP and the home alarm system industry asking them to delay this implementation so that they're able to identify and properly transfer what AARP believes is a significant number of elderly who have their phones or their alarm systems or their, call buttons on 3G and don't know that they're about to be cut off. So I don't know. Martha actually called this to my attention, Martha Moore, and she asked me if I could bring it up. And because we're concerned that if this is the case, if there are a lot in Arlington that are on this, it may be something that is an issue where communication about what to do or how to know whether you're impacted and things like that may be important public communication. Because if you go on the website, it says, if you don't know whether you're impacted, check the device and call your provider. And all I'm saying is some 80-year-old person who this is their lifeline is not going to know how to do that.
Yeah, I've not seen anything to indicate that the FCC is going to halt that end of 3G. But like I said, the AARP petition could lead to some action, but I've not seen anything to indicate that that's likely to be.
Well, the only one that stopped this month is AT&T, and Verizon is not until June. So I don't know, and I think some of the others are like December, and one is even like January of 2023. But I still think we may want to, I don't know what the level of potential impact is here in Arlington, but it may be something where we need to do something proactive, at least make sure that that the county is aware of it, and maybe the agency, our Commission on Aging and so on, to ask them if they're aware of it or if they're working with AARP. I don't know what the solution is, but certainly if it's not delayed, then we need to make sure we have a program that identifies people who are depending on communication that's about to be shut down.
I agree, Jackie. Agree with that 100%.
And Luis, we'll come to you after Mike. Just want to ask you what if there's any light you can shed on this from Verizon's point of view. Mike, you're next.
Mary, why don't I let Verizon respond on that one, because mine's a slightly different topic for Frank.
Okay. Luis, do you have any insight on the capability of some of these devices?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean I'm happy to track it down, but I'm not 3G conversant, so I can give you a very authoritative sounding answer that would be wrong. I'm happy to do that, but
Okay.
I know I'm happy to check on that with our government affairs folks.
Oh, that'd be great. Luis,
Not a
if you
problem.
could thank you. Appreciate it. Mike?
Frank, I'm curious if you have any odds making to offer about the federal government actually passing privacy-related legislation, digital privacy-related legislation. And I just want to mention that I did send an article to folks, and whether you agree with it or not, the gist of the article was that if left to market forces, privacy will become a luxury available in the digital space for people who could afford it. And interruptive marketing and tracking and all kinds of other things that we're looking skeptically at will become the bane of the existence of the low-income people who don't have the means to purchase the higher levels of privacy. And that triggered in me the possibility that this also might be an equity issue. We've sort of put it forward mostly as is it a human right or a property right issue? But Arlington is already attentive to issues of equity, and the article I thought was a reasonable representation of the possibility that digital privacy will become an equity issue if we don't get ahead of it, because people with the money to buy the privacy will buy it, and people without the money to buy it will have to live without it. And I'm not sure that's an outcome we would think is ideal in Arlington County. Any prospect for federal legislation?
Well, surprisingly, the need for privacy is a fairly bipartisan issue. So, if there is a will among leadership to move, and in this current environment, it seems like there are a lot of other priorities ahead of data privacy. But if we got back to regular order, which probably not in this lifetime, but it does seem like it has actually a pretty good chance of moving. Should we, get past some of the current issues, because it has bipartisan support. John Leibowitz, who was head of the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, had a good piece in the Wall Street Journal earlier this month, basically outlining the need, and said, given the Europeans have already moved on this, and given the importance of tech industries to our economy, he outlined how Congress can move to protect the data. So it was a good piece. I recommend John Leibowitz. But so I think it's one of the better issues out there, because there aren't too many bipartisan issues out there. So this is one of those that do share that.
So there's hope. John, did you have a comment?
No, I retracted it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Frank. And we could send around that link, Frank, probably the Wall Street, the Leibowitz. That would be good.
Yeah,
that'd be good. And it also reminds me, I want to send around the Smart City article as well. Jackie, comment?
Yes, to follow up on the 3G, is that something you can just mention to staff, or would you talk to your colleague at Commission on Aging? I'm not sure what to do with it, and I didn't have any motion or anything, but I would like to at least make sure that staff are aware, and I guess
Right.
that they have some plan to be
Yeah,
addressing
well,
it.
I'll reach out to my counterpart for the Commission on Aging, and then also we'll just make sure the county is just flag it and make sure that
Okay.
they have some understanding that this is also, I think, my assumption is that also the device people know, right? I mean, more than what
Yes.
devices are not going to work, right? And it's in their best interest as well to do this. So an AARP may have a list of devices possible.
I don't know. I didn't complete all of the research. This was just this afternoon. I just wanted to
Right.
make sure it was on the radar.
Right. No, that's good. That's good. And
All
let's
right.
let's be proactive, right? And not allow it to all go dark and then we're
Yeah.
scrambling, right?
Most of what's on the internet right now is like panic from various different
Mhm.
places.
Right. Right. So let's see. And of course, yeah, it'll be and to see how much this impacts and you're right. It's important to give our citizens some heads up, and the county needs to know that, particularly the ones who are being serviced in particular.
Yeah, I would think most of those products are subscription based, and that
Right.
the providers would be letting their customers know that if presumably they're also either saying it's going to let them know it's either going to end, or we've got this new spectrum we're going to use, which probably in many instances may require new devices, I'm guessing.
I know
Yes.
AT&T sent out new phones to those who are still on 3G. They just sent out new phones. So I know they're being proactive in that way, but I don't know about the other devices you mentioned, Jackie. So it's a good
I mean,
question
it's a
to see.
long list. It included medical devices and various
Yeah.
other things. Yeah.
No, exactly. So next is chair update. There were just a couple of things I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of. And speaking of other commissioners, there was a commission chair meeting the end of January that the chair of the board, Katie, chaired. And then really it was just an opportunity for the commission chairs to come together and talk about how best practices could be shared. And also they briefed us on something that you all may have seen. they're going to send out the link about virtual meetings, because now once the emergency has been declared as over, it'll probably be 4 weeks from that, then we would start meeting face to face. But there is an opportunity for 25% of our meetings to be virtual, even after the emergency is declared done. So that was something that was passed in the state legislature. So we will be, once that emergency changes, once the status changes, then obviously we'll keep you posted. But I just wanted to give you a heads up, as we don't really know when that will be, but there will still be, even after that, there'll still be an opportunity to meet virtually. And it was interesting because a good portion of the commission chairs, and we did get a lot of commission chairs were in the meeting. By and large, we said we have better participation virtually, and we think it's easier for people to participate virtually. So we actually think it's better access, and we've had good discussions and all those things. So they certainly got the message that this is something that is, that we think is valuable, and that we wanted that option. So there's that's where it is at this point, that it would be a 25% option. John.
I also think it's a lot easier for members of the public to participate.
Yes, we
So
mentioned that as well.
So it's not just about us, although that's great too. But if we're really trying to expand engagement, community engagement, and bring down barriers to community engagement to all segments of our community, this is a method. So even if we're meeting in person, I would advocate for the provision of remote participation for members of the public to join even our in-person meetings.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we ask in terms of are the meeting rooms set up for members to, not only commission members, but the public to engage virtually, because there are some who may not be able to attend, and we want to give them that option. So that, John, we definitely made that that request, and so they're checking on that in terms of what the what the capability is. Jackie, I think you're next, and then Mike.
Yeah, that was sort of my question. Is will it be possible to have hybrid meetings and to have some exception if people aren't able to attend in person? I'm losing my night vision. So the amount of time when I'm going to be able to continue to drive to a location at night for a meeting is limited. I mean,
Exactly.
maybe after cataract surgery and all that, it'll come back, but I don't, this is TBD. So I would think that there's a real value in
Mhm.
for actually a wide range of people
Right.
who won't be able to attend meetings and can do them virtually. So maybe a hybrid model would be possible. They're hard to run. I mean, I don't know, but probably you guys have done this. I've in the past did do a lot of hybrid meetings because FEMA had people all across everywhere. But it takes good technology to do that, and also you almost have to have someone dedicated to managing your remote participants that's different from who's managing your in-person participants. Otherwise you lose them. So
No, that's true, and that's of course what we've learned from the teachers who are having to do hybrid. It's really hard. It's much harder than all virtual or all face to face. Mike.
Yeah, I want to second those comments, especially about public engagement. And one way to demonstrate an interest in public engagement would be to actually have, for instance, an 800 helpline that citizens could call to say, I want to test my equipment to see if I'm going to be able to participate in this video conferencing technology, and actually have sort of a welcoming assistance that they can do so. Not sort of like, you can do so if you can figure this stuff out on your own, but really a truly welcoming posture that says, we want you on here and we're willing to help you to participate.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks. And John?
So yeah, so Mayor, just to follow up, I think if it's not already authorized by the law that was passed, we should put this on our legislative agenda next time it comes around to make the type of engagement that we're talking about legal for these types of meetings, because I think that's one of the constraints. The county can't do
That's
things
right.
outside of what the Commonwealth has authorized for these public meetings.
Right. That's right, John. So that is something we'll probably we will probably be adding that to the list. It's again, I think they're taking a look, and they want to know how this is going to be interpreted, because of course it's a difference between commission members being virtual and the public being virtual, right? Mike?
That's the distinction I was going to try to tease out a little bit. I think even if we had to be physically present 75% of the time, the participating public could still be online, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. The issue is the and also, as Frank will I think we had this conversation about, remember we used to have people come in just on telephone, right? But the challenge about them being included in quorum and voting was also, so that's what has to get worked out, Mike. That is not, there hasn't really been a clarity. That those are some of the questions we raised, because before the pandemic it was pretty clear, and now we just want to make sure that's. Frank, you want to comment?
Yes, I was going to say, Arlington's one of the most compact jurisdictions in the Commonwealth. I mean, there's an energy, environmental factor to not having all these people traveling, but a lot of the other jurisdictions across the Commonwealth are a lot bigger. So you would think again that there'd be a great advantage to being able to do remote or hybrid. People have to travel a lot further in these other places.
Good point. Look at Fairfax County. And also, I think we've demonstrated, right, that business can be, the people's business can be done, right?
Yeah, it's
So,
worked. It's
right.
worked.
So that's just wanted to, that's something obviously we're gonna we'll be watching. And Frank, this next portion, please chime in. Frank and I met with our county liaison. Takas would have been here tonight, but he had a conflict. What basically what we talked to him about was, one, we wanted to get his sense about the forum, and he found it really helpful and is sharing it with all of his colleagues. And Andrea even mentioned, you talked about wanting the PowerPoints, and also the staff. There was the next day I was told that a lot of staff members contacted Andrea asking for the forum. They wanted to see they wanted to watch and see the link and see what was, so it has a shelf life, which is helpful. Um, what we talked to Takas about was really priorities, and we just wanted to talk about what we had identified as priorities and see what, how that aligned with the board's priorities, and also in terms of the timing, in terms of us giving the benefit of this independent body, giving Takas and the rest of his colleagues our perspective. So we talked a little bit about that, but in terms of the number one priority for us was, which we talked about a little bit earlier, was the digital planning, right? Of having how would that work, and conceptually certainly that makes sense, but what does that mean in terms of how the county would implement and execute that? So that was one of the agenda items we discussed, and also and certainly given.
And actually, Takas, had an ask of us on that issue, was to break it down into sort of, how how do we do it, what's the benefit, and how do we sell it to the other board members. What
Right.
it just in plain language.
Right. Simple and
So he's looking for our help there.
Mhm. Yeah. And Mike, I know you had done some stories before, but do you get a sense about what might be helpful? I think you might have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, when I did the big white paper right at the beginning of the pandemic, I tried to employ what were called provocative stories. They would be like sort of conversation starters, so people could say, "Oh yeah, here's sort of a story that would make you think about where the lines around privacy should be, um, or what have you." So I'm not sure we've gotten a ton of traction on that. I mean, we didn't choose to use the privacy ones in the privacy forum, but as a technique of public engagement, I think it can be effective, because you give everybody sort of a setting and a short story plot line to get their juices flowing, and then it's easier for them to express opinions about what it is they would like. I suspect that might work better for privacy with the public engagement than it would for digital planning or IT governance in the county. But using stories to prompt conversation, I think, could be a good technique.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Yeah. So I think that's certainly one thing he's relying on us on. He's pleased that cyber is one of our priorities, and of course you've seen what's happened this week. And Jack and his team are very busy this week dealing with the increased attention the world, the virtual world is getting. And then the other thing around cyber that Frank and I talked about, and we had talked about last time we met, was the importance of having an understanding of what the decision making would be around a cyber incident, in addition to the technical capability, but also the decision making. And Takas again, agreed with us, and also is looking at what the Council of Government, what if they did a regional decision making exercise around that. He thought it would be really helpful. So one of the things Frank and I were talking about is not only having that regional, but also having our five members actually walking through an exercise to think about where their decision boundaries are and what questions they think are important to ask, so that they're not that they rehearse rather than having to go live Broadway in the spotlight before they've had an opportunity to think through some of these issues. So it was a good conversation. And the final ask that we did not have on our radar, but he had asked us to look at, was climate and technology. He really would like us to take a look at that and see what we think, kind of comments we have around that. And of course, that's a pretty big, for those of you who have ever looked at that, it's a pretty big, big arena. But there are some really interesting things going on in that arena. So that was one of the things he mentioned as a forum topic, and we wanted to share that with you. Frank, what did I miss?
On I guess the survey about whether we could.
Yes. We also brought up the survey, which Michael Cornfield, we had talked about that as a follow up to the privacy forum, and Taka's his perspective is really that that's a civic federation, civic engagement role, and not our role. And so that was where the lanes were drawn. So we will stay in our lane, and the Civic Federation is doing some engagement in terms of surveys that I'm aware of. Jackie? Jackie, do you have
Yeah, I don't know of a survey that we're doing on that topic.
No, I think what he said is, if anyone is going to do it, it would be the Civic Federation, not us.
Okay,
basically.
well, I will actually take that back and look at it. What we have coming up for our March meeting is actually a different sort of reaction to the forum, which was we heard from people who said, well, I want to know what I can do about it.
So an individual perspective.
So yes, so and this is not my committee. It's actually our legislative committee, partly because of who's on it, and Civil Rights Committee. Anyway, they're sponsoring someone who's going to come in and talk about actions individuals can take to protect their privacy and some of the things that they should look for. I don't know, it's very hard, having done the FEMA guidance on this. It's very hard to figure out how to scope that. I mean, on what the level of understanding is that you try to aim for when you're trying to deal with the general public on what they can do. I mean, this was, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago that I was doing this, but, recommending to the general public that they all get VPNs was one of the things people debated. It's like, well, at that point, a lot of the public had no idea what a VPN was and whether that was the right recommendation or not, whether it was even at a level that the public could undertake. And there are things like that. I mean, so anyway, but it'll be interesting. And that meeting is March 8th. And so you might want
International Women's Day. International Women's Day, March 8th. What time, Jackie?
The meeting starts at 7:00. I don't know whether this is first, second, or, what other, time frame it is, but the meeting starts at 7. You should go on the CivFed site and register in advance, because then it's easier to just log on than it otherwise is. They have to track who can vote and who can't. So that's why you have to have a pre-registration. But that's what they're doing. And we did not have if anyone on the commission has any ideas about what they think would be valuable in a survey, if you shoot me a line, I'll, think about it and think whether it's something we can take on. We've got a lot on our plate right now. The other thing we're doing is the Marcus Alert, which you mentioned 988, but the Marcus Alert planning of crisis response for mental health is also, I mean, it seems completely separate from this, but that's what I'm doing is a panel on that. So.
Mm-hmm. No, and
And
that's really helpful that that'll be an individual perspective on privacy as opposed to an institutional. That's a
yeah,
good, I think that's a really, really helpful for CivFed to do. Mike?
yeah, and we also had talked about, that's something this commission talked about, is that we might want to look at improving our online guidance to the public about what they can do about it. And that would, I think, be a role that the commission could have, is improve the education on individual action protection.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. Mike?
I can't resist commenting on that last one before I go on my own question. Whenever a government is asked, what are you doing for a privacy policy? And they say, here are the things you can do for yourself. It's hard for me to fail to conclude that they have not an inclination to do the things that they could do, because we started talking about what the county should be doing with the data that the county has. And if the conversation is reframed to what I should be doing for myself as an individual citizen consumer, there's valid things I could be doing hygienically, but it sort of misses the point of the original question: what is the county doing or not doing? And do we need to be doing more at the county level? I suspect we could all be doing more, but I'm a little nonplussed by turning it into a conversation about self-sufficiency instead of about data privacy in Arlington County government. That's more of an editorial.
No, that's fine, Mike. But I think in terms of the Civic Federation, their role in helping individuals, I mean, obviously our commission is focused on the institution and the policy, right?
Yeah.
But CivFed focusing on the individual, that's certainly, their purview to define their role as assisting individuals. But I think our role, yes, will be focused on the institution and the policies and the recommendations we make to the board. Exactly.
Yeah. And on the matter of board priorities,
which we also do.
Yeah. Yes. And economy. But on the matter of board priorities, in a much more concrete way, I have to say one of the least satisfying aspects of my participation with you wonderful people is finding out after the fact that we are pursuing some clearly information technology thing that arrived as an unsolicited proposal. And so I would like to try to get some sort of agreement with the board that we would prefer to have a cut at those when it matters. And that's more of a process question. And to make it a little less contentious, I'd say, even if we get wind that Virginia is taking up privacy legislation, we'd like to start thinking about privacy from the perspective that the state is doing and what it's doing for the county. So some alert to whatever their workload is, anything that's IT, I very much appreciate the camaraderie of them saying, this is coming up, we want you to participate, as opposed to, here's what we did, and
what do you think?
I hope you think it's okay.
Right. No, and we did talk about that process and sequence, Mike, which is one of the reasons we think that's, and he's very aware and tuned to that and really wants to shift that as much as possible. So thank you. That's another endorsement for let's get this sequence so we can be as helpful as possible, right? I mean, that's our role. That's why all of you are volunteering your valuable time to do it. Next on the list is the budget. For those of you who haven't been through this before, what happens is the county manager does recommend the budget, and we sent you a copy of the link to that 900-page budget, and there's about 11 or 12 pages. That's the DTS budget, and all of the commissions from March 1 until about March 12th, somewhere around there, present to the county board in terms and make comments about the budget for their particular department that they liaise with. So obviously our group is is DTS, the Department of Technology Services, and wanted to just give you an idea of what the looking at it in terms of from that point of view, what Jack, Belcher, the CIO, emphasized. He was not able to be here, but what he said is, that I'm just reading it, so I'm not paraphrasing. We continue to strive to achieve resiliency and growth. Cloud smart migration and security of data and applications that support the business of the county continue to be our priorities. Additionally, growing the capabilities of our staff through purposeful training assure that we develop a workforce to satisfy the emerging technology trends that we are all seeing. So that's kind of their focus and support in terms of what they're looking at for this year's budget. And what we do is have we make comments about that budget in the Frank and I will. We're not sure if we're doing it virtually or face to face yet, but the 10th of March, we will be making comments in front of the board. But we usually assemble virtually a letter that all of us have input on about what comments we want to make about the budget. Mike, is that an old hand or a new hand? And then John, you're next. Mike, did you have a comment about budget? No.
That was
Okay.
an old hand.
Oh, that was an old hand. Okay. All right. So John and then Jackie.
So I think, in alignment with the board priorities and helping to explain to Taka's colleagues why this is important and why it's valuable, I think we should take the opportunity of the budget cycle to point out some problems that we have when it comes to rendering policy advice, specifically the fact that we can't see what the IT spend is across the enterprise. We should not, in my view, be limited to commenting on DTS's budget as a department. We should be commenting on IT policy broadly. And as we have learned and we know, there's a lot of IT spend across the other departments that is completely inscrutable to the public. We don't know if it's aligned to the strategic priorities of the government. We don't know if it's performing well. We don't know how much it is. We don't know the overall, spend from a percentage of the general budget and whether it's in line with other large organizations.
Benchmarking.
So this goes to recommendation 1 from the set of recommendations that we sent for the comprehensive planning element, which is the adoption of IT investment management as the guiding principle for how the county government manages its IT spend. And so I think we should take the opportunity of the budget to point out that it's impossible for us to really opine with any sort of information on the IT spend of the county, because the county has not adopted this approach, and that our recommendation is that they adopt that approach. Number 2, I think, as a result of the privacy conversations and the oversight governance board, my second recommendation would be to adopt the NIST privacy framework and direct the county manager to prepare a privacy program for the county government writ large that is funded and resourced to assess our current state, select a target privacy profile from the NIST framework that we want to accomplish, and then the resources needed to accomplish that profile over some period of time as part of the capital improvement plan or the general operating budget. So I think those 2 big things, which come directly from the recommendations that we've already made, will help break this problem down. I think the challenge for the electeds is that when we say comprehensive plan element, they think, wow, that's big. I didn't realize it was that big. I don't have my head wrapped around it. And so I think the best thing we can do is not try and necessarily educate them on the broader piece of it, but break it down into the highest priority things, get them chewing through it a little bit, and get them to understand through action and experience why this is valuable and what it's going to do to drive performance in county government. And then the nice thing I'll say is that I don't believe I've seen before performance measures for any of these budget items and departments in prior years' budgets that I've looked at. Maybe I haven't. Maybe it came in the last year or two, but I was very happy to see performance measures in the budget. I don't know that all the performance measures are really relevant to the public, but I'm glad to see it's there. So I would double down on that and encourage the board and the manager to continue to mature that performance management approach to budgeting.
Great, thanks, John. Jackie, is that an old hand or a new hand?
It's a new hand. First, I want to enthusiastically support both of the recommendations that John has made. In fact, my recommendation is a variation on his first one. And I've made this request in the past. I think we could actually, there's a chance we could get this. That is, I would like to recommend that we request that the Management and Budget Office do a code search on IT and provide basically a horizontal slice of IT funding. I can't believe that any budget in this modern age worth its salt doesn't have the ability to sort on some of these things that are integrated throughout, like IT. It must be in their purchase agreements and various other things. This is a code that they can look up. Certainly the auditor looked at IT contracts, was one of the things the auditor has recently done a contract of. So they can sort these by IT. So I think what we should request is that they do a sort on the budget based on, won't get everything, but based on basically proposed IT spending across all of them, so that we'll be able to have an idea for the first time of where the money is in this area across the whole institution. That would be a first step to being able to take a more comprehensive look, is knowing where the money is and who's managing it. And I think that, I can't believe it's not a fairly direct budget analysis task. So I think we should request that. I think we should request it in writing. I think the board should want to have that. I didn't write a resolution on that because others might be better at the phrasing, but that's my recommendation. We should request that, and that might help our analysis right away this year.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Mike?
Mary, I want to jump on this one too and say, I think there's been many subjects that we've brought up, including cybersecurity, privacy, data sharing, that Jack, as our main point of contact in Jack's piece of the county DTS, honestly tells us is beyond their scope of authority. And accepting that and understanding that it's not particularly our purview to design a organization structure for the county that has the CIO reporting directly to the county manager like God intended him to. But rather I observe that there are a layer of 3 deputy county managers, and every piece of the county falls below one of those 3. And they are above Jack in the organizational chart. And so without proposing to change the organizational chart, I might say that some of the things we're seeking don't fit in the DTS box very well, and they might fit better in this 3 deputy county manager triumvirate, because that does span the entire county. So if you do want to have a conversation about privacy that spans the county, or data sharing, or cybersecurity, it seems that would be the level and those would be the organizational units that are appropriately scoped to do so. So I just want to make that, if we're trying to map dollars to budgets to organizational structure, I think much of the action that we're trying to get to happen would happen at that 3 deputy county manager level, and they all have, I'd say, a third of the budget to keep an eye on.
And that's why I phrased it as the board should, direct the manager to do this prospectively, because I think the budget's already baked to some extent. If the structure's not there to get at the information that we're getting at, we're not going to get at this cycle. So I think it's more about, we can't tell this today, so therefore here are your marching orders. Go figure out how to make sure we can tell this next year. And then it's the county manager's job to design the right organizational structure and the right resource plan and the staffing plan. Jackie, I think part of the problem with the coding issue is that most of the humans are coded as personnel, and are they IT humans or are they non-IT humans? And if they're, depending upon where they're working, they might be managing IT. So the coding the salaries and benefits, I think, is the most difficult part of that analysis. Contracts are easy, equipment's easy, but it's the staffing costs and resources that's the tricky part.
Well, let's start with easy then.
Yeah, so I think we've got a sense about where, and I'm mindful that we're 4 minutes from I think we've got a sense about what some of the items are that to frame the letter. So we'll start a draft. We'll send it around to all of you, and then we'll want your comments back. And then I think usually if we get it to them about 3 or 4 days before we speak, it's best, because then they read it before we actually are up there. So so we've probably got a week to 10 days to get it where we want it. So we will start that draft, but we didn't want to do a draft without having these conversations first. So thank you. The final item on our agenda is the December 2021 draft minutes. Does anyone have any comments, any changes, recommendations to the minutes? Anything you see that we need to alter? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so I would entertain a motion to adopt.
I move adopt the December 2021 minutes.
Second?
Hey, and I second that.
Thank you, Andrea. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Against? Nays? Okay, all right, and we'll have both January and February. There was a transcription issue with the January one. John?
Is it time for new business?
Yeah, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Request for a future agenda topic and briefing from county staff on the site to register for summer camp for the Parks and Recreation. It is a constant thorn in parents' sides, and I think it's an equity issue that if you don't happen to be able to sit by your computer at the exact moment that it releases, and what, if any, are their plans to improve that customer experience going forward?
Yes, and our understanding is it was a poor execution of a service provided to the department by a service provider. But we will.
This is not the first time that this has happened. And it is like Lord of the Flies or Walmart on Black Friday trying to get your summer camp registration in. And I think we could probably do better, is what I'm saying. Okay.
All right. We will. Noted. And we will ask that question for the update. It's good. All right. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I
all
move
don't want
I
to
we
move
go.
we
I move
adjourn.
we adjourn.
Who wants to second? Frank made the move, who wants to second.
I second.
I'll
All right,
second.
thank you. Andrea got in there under the wire. All right. I thought everybody just wanted to stay because it was such a lovely night. Hey, thanks everybody. Really good conversation. And we specifically didn't want to have any guests because we thought there was just a lot on the agenda. So thank you. Really good, thoughtful conversations. And any other thoughts that you may think of later, feel free to send Frank and me a note. So thanks. Appreciate it.
We didn't vote, Mary.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
Aye.
Been a long day.
All
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Please.
Aye.
Thanks. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good meeting you all.
Night.